so here we're meeting Isabel's son for the first time, Armando Orites. And we see here the color scheme that he's wearing, the black, white, and red. It's known as the black mass. You have the black and white, which is the coming together of opposites. Then you have the red, which represents the blood or the sacrifice. Okay, it's known as the black mass for Pan. Okay? All right, so here we have Isabel, whom is emerging out of the ambulance that's on fire. This is really supposed to symbolize rebirth. Again, we read on the website Shamanistic Astrology that the number 13 represents death and rebirth. Okay, this scene is supposed to be symbolic of rebirth. It's almost like a phoenix type of effect. She's getting out of the ambulance that's on fire, representing rebirth. And not to get too far off topic, but if you look at the way this scene is framed, it's almost as if Armando is coming from the spirit realm to meet up with his mother, who was just reborn from the fire. You just look at the light that's illuminating behind Armando. It almost reminds me of the scene from E.T. You remember when E.T. came out of the shed? You know, him and Elliot were outside and E.T. came out of the shed. The shed was illuminated. And for those who don't know, that's pretty much alluding to Elliot pretty much summons him from his subconscious. He casts a spell with the M&Ms and he summons him from his subconscious. And E.T. came from the spirit realm out of the shed. That's what that was really supposed to represent. And, you know, it gives off this same type of vibe in this scene. You know, not to get too far off topic, but that's kind of what this reminded me of. And here again, the scene had to be shot from this angle so the viewers would know without a shadow of a doubt that the van was, in fact, on fire, because this is supposed to be representative of rebirth. Okay? All right, so now we move on to this scene with Isabel and Armando, where they actually discuss avenging the death of his father, or who he thought to be his father at that time. And we see here that Isabel has on the all black for Saturn, okay, which represents Pan, okay. In astrology, the sign that represents Saturn is the Capricorn, which is the goat. The so-called goat god is known as Pan. Okay, well, in Greece, he was known as Pan. All right. Or in ancient Kemet, it was the ram god known as Khnum. Okay. Hey, now would you look at here? I'm telling you, you cannot make this stuff up. Now, did we or did we not read on the website, ridingthebeast.com, in part 1, that in Christianity, the number 13 represents the Virgin Mary, right? That's exactly why they had to have this picture in this scene. Look in the background. It's a picture of, or a bastardized version of the Virgin Mary. Because as we know, Mary was an Israelite, which means she was a black woman. She was a black woman either from the tribe of Judah or Levi. The scriptures don't explicitly say which tribe she's from, but, you know, simply from what little evidence we have, it's either one of those two tribes. But the point being is this. Why have that picture in the background? Why? What's the point? Because this is supposed to be an allusion to Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gigi, and that helicopter crash. All right? Okay, so for you brothers that's saying, you know, I still can't see it, Ak. You reaching. I can't see it, Kanaiba. All right, okie dokie. Well, let's take a look at this article that was written about a year ago, January 28, 2020, from CNN.com. and it reads, a few hours before Kobe Bryant's life was cut short in a helicopter crash, the NBA legend went to church and prayed. He visited Our Lady Queen of Angels Catholic Church in Newport Beach, California, early Sunday morning ahead of the 7 a.m. Mass, according to Father Steve Salad. Now, again, he visited a Catholic church right before the helicopter crashed. Now, we know, as I already stated in the last video, that in the Catholic Church, they worship the Mother Goddess, be it in the form of Ishtar, Inanna, Isis, or what have you. They just use Mary as a front to cover up what they're really doing. Okay? That's why in this particular scene, they had to have that picture of Mary there. Again, this whole movie is predictive programming to the death of Kobe Bryant and everybody that was on that helicopter crash. Okay? All right, so this is the scene where Marcus Burnett, played by Martin Lawrence, his character is in the hospital's chapel praying for his friend Mike Larry, played by Will Smith, of course. And, well, I guess I'm going to quote what he said, seeing that I'm new to this whole YouTube thing and, I don't want to deal with any type of copyright. Okay? So I'm going to quote what he said in this scene. And he said, and I quote, "Dear God, it's me, Marcus. You've blessed me with a lot of stuff lately. I know I haven't been to church in a while. Probably Easter." End quote. So, within this scene, he mentions Easter. Out of anything he could have mentioned about the last time he's been to church, he mentioned Easter. Now we know in the real world, we do have a lot of our people that pretty much only go to church on Easter. And that's fine, but he said this for a specific purpose, okay? It's because, again, this goes back to the Mother Goddess. That's really what Easter is about. Easter is in veneration of Ishtar or Ostara, okay, which is known as the goddess of the dawn, okay? So it should all be adding up now. Remember, the last scene that I commented on, it had the picture of Mary on the wall, okay? And remember I said that within Christianity, who they really venerate is the Mother Goddess. It's Ishtar, okay, or Ostara, like I said. So you see, Kobe Bryant was sacrificed for the Mother Goddess, or to push the divine feminine. That's really what his sacrifice was about, or at least part of what it was about, okay? All right, so I want to rewind a little bit back to the bar scene, to where we meet this character named Rita for the first time. And now one may ask, okay, well, does she play a part in this predictive programming? And the answer would be yes. Even though it's not something so much that's esoteric, but it does, or she does play a part in this predictive programming. And her role is somewhat similar to Isabel's role. Okay? So what do I mean by that? You got to understand, they're playing the love interest of Mike Larry in this movie. Now, when you look at the first two installments of Bad Boys, the love interests of Mike Larry were so-called black women. Of course, in the first one, you had the sister that I believe she was a call girl, and she got shot in the beginning of the movie. Then Bad Boys 2, of course, his love interest was Gabrielle Union. But now we have the third installment of Bad Boys, and notice that both love interests, past and present, of Mike Larry are women who are of so-called Mexican descent, right? They're the tribe of Issachar, so-called Mexican descent. So one may ask, okay, well, what does that have to do with Kobe Bryant? Well, it alludes to Kobe Bryant because his wife, of course, Vanessa Bryant, is of Mexican descent. You know, it's nothing major or, quote, esoteric about it, but it's still something that alludes to Kobe Bryant. All right, so going back to this bar scene, we have a conversation between Mike and Marcus. And Mike accuses Marcus of being jealous of him. So Mike goes on to ask Marcus a question, and he asks him, how long you been married? What, 20 years? And then Marcus goes on to say, and I quote, 26, right? So again, that 26 is just an allusion to the date that the helicopter would crash. And as we know, the helicopter crashed on January 26th, 2020. All right. Again, you brothers can go and actually look up this scene on your own time. You know, I'm not going to actually post the scene because I'm not trying to deal with any copyright issues right now, you know, until I get, you know, more information on how this YouTube thing works. All right. All right. So now we're entering into the scene where Armando is on the phone with his mother, Isabel. And he's talking to her in regards to his attempt to kill Mike Larry. And, you know, she kind of gets on him because she wants Mike Larry to be the last to die out of all the cops that was actually in on the case against his father, or who he thought was his father at the time. OK, but what we want to take a look at in this scene is look at the dock doors. OK. You have a dock door number 9 and a dock door number 7. Now, we already touched on the number 9. Again, look at the date the movie came out and how many people died in the helicopter crash. The movie came out, of course, January the 17th, 2020, which is 9 days before the helicopter crash. The helicopter crashed January 26, 2020. Okay. And also the number 9 represents the divine feminine. All right. But now look here. We have the number 7. Okay. Now, of course, Kobe Bryant's daughter name was Gianna, a.k.a. Gigi. Right. Now, her name Gigi, which is spelled G-I-G-I, is an allusion to the letter G. And the letter G is the 7th letter in the alphabet. So G actually represents the number 7. What we're going to find out is the number 7 is actually also going to be a theme throughout this movie. And I'm going to touch on it. All right. All right. So now we have this scene where Armando starts going on this rampage, you know, knocking off every member of law enforcement that was in on the case against his family's cartel, so to speak. And we see here the cameraman purposely filmed this shot at this angle where his left eye is exposed. Okay. We know the left eye is for the mother goddess, be it Sekhmet, Bastet, Hathor, you know, etc. Okay. And notice also how it's actually a sunlight that's illuminating on his face. Because, again, the left eye is also known as the eye of Ra, okay? Which, in a nutshell, is the feminine extension or the feminine counterpart to the sun god Ra, okay? All right, so let's fast forward a bit to this scene where Mike finds out that his partner, Marcus, has now retired, okay? And again, notice how the cameraman actually films this scene. Look at where Martin, well, not Martin. look at where Will Smith is standing. Okay. He's standing right in a position where it looks like a halo is around his head, or a sun. Okay. Again, the sun represents wisdom. Okay. It represents enlightenment. And this is the same where Will Smith is enlightened that his partner has now retired. Okay. Again, this is just more veneration of the sun. Okay. This is why the helicopter actually went down on Sunday. Okay. It was not a coincidence, right? You know, in ancient times, the sun and the serpent represents the same thing. I believe I said that at the beginning of part 1. The sun and the serpent represent the same thing. They both represent wisdom or enlightenment. Okay. The serpent was viewed as being the enlightener of all mankind, the same way the sun enlightens the whole planet Earth. All right. So the scene goes on, and now we come to the point where Mike confronts Marcus about reneging on the bet, right? Because they had a bet going. You know, they had a foot race, and if Marcus won, you know, both of them have to turn in their badges and retire. If Mike wins, what he said, and I quote, "We ride this thing till the wheels fall off. Bad boys for life." Okay. So Marcus goes on to inform him in a nutshell that he never reneged on the bet, you know, because technically you died, right? He coded out 3 times, you know. So what this scene is actually representing is representing death and rebirth. We already touched on that in regards to the number 13. The number 13 represents death and rebirth. And as we know, Kobe Bryant's daughter, Gigi, at the time of her death was 13 years old. All right. All right. So the scene continues, and Mike Larry actually accuses Armando of stealing something from him. And Marcus addresses it. He says, "What did he steal from you exactly?" "What, the legend? Bulletproof Mike." Then he goes on to say, I saw you on the ground bleeding. You're human, just like the rest of us." You know, paraphrasing what he said. So this actually goes into how people in general view athletes. They view any type of entertainers. They view them as gods on this planet. And that's the role that they're actually playing within the craft. These athletes and entertainers, musicians, so on and so forth, they actually play the role of different pagan gods that were venerated throughout different ancient civilizations. You know, and Kobe Bryant was no different. Okay. And if you look at his fan base, you know, a lot of people were devastated when he retired. And you saw how people were when, you know, he met his demise. But the point being is, you know, when these athletes, especially when they retire, it brings people back to reality that, you know, they get old as well. They're not immortal, so to speak. Okay. And that's why this movie is the perfect movie for the predictive programming in regards to Kobe Bryant. Okay. Both of these characters, Marcus and Mike, can represent different aspects of Kobe Bryant. Marcus, of course, would represent a retired Kobe Bryant. Okay. You know, post NBA. Mike represents an older Kobe Bryant who was still competitive, still had that competitive killer instinct nature, but he wasn't ready for retirement. Okay. And then actually, if you want to take it a step further, the character Armando has those same qualities, that competitiveness and that killer instinct. Okay. But he's a younger version. So I would liken him to the number 8 Kobe Bryant. Okay. He was the Kobe Bryant that had the killer instinct and the whole nine, but he had something to prove to everybody. Okay. You know, it was a point in time where Kobe had to prove that he can win championships without Shaq. Likewise, Armando, there's a scene in the movie where he was on the phone with his mother, and he basically told her in a nutshell how he had got used to running things by himself while she was in prison. You know, it was like he had to prove something to his mother. He was the number 8 Kobe Bryant. And of course, Mike Larry is the number 24 Kobe Bryant, you know, an older Kobe Bryant that still had that, what you call a Mamba mentality, so to speak. Okay. And of course, Marcus represents the retired Kobe Bryant. Okay. All right. So now we have this particular scene where Armando is on his laptop, right? And he's looking at an article about his family's cartel. And if you look off to the side, right here to the right, you have trending articles. Look at the second trending article, and it reads, "Man found snake in his engine. An anaconda native to ... Oh, and look at what time it is. It says 9 o'clock a.m. I'm telling you, you cannot make this up. So again, they had to have something alluding to the serpent. Because again, as we know, Kobe Bryant is the Black Mamba. Okay? And again, the time for that trending article is 9 o'clock a.m. Again, as we know, it was 9 people that actually died in the helicopter crash. Okay? And the movie came out exactly 9 days before the helicopter crash. All right. All right. So this is a very interesting scene. This is right after the ceiling fan came down off the ceiling, and it pretty much destroyed a lot of stuff, and it cut Martin Lawrence on his forehead. But pay attention to his forehead. Look at the scar. It's shaped like a number 7. And that's not by happenstance. They purposely made it shaped like a number 7 because, of course, the number 7 represents the letter G. The letter G is for Kobe Bryant's daughter, Gigi. That's what they're alluding to right here. And then if you look to the far right, at the bottom right, the picture that's on the wall, it looks like it's a picture of his daughter at a basketball game, and she has the jersey number 6. Okay. Now, people that have, you know, a very basic understanding of things, you know, they know that the number 6 is usually associated with evil, and the number 7 usually on a basic level is associated with good. Okay. So it's like they're trying to play it's like hermetic principles being displayed here. You have the man on the left-hand side who has the number 7. Okay. You have the woman on the right side, which represents the feminine principle, with the number 6. Okay. But what happens when you bring this masculine and feminine principle together? The number 7 and the number 6, you bring it together, that gives you 76. Which is the number that represents the Capricorn. The Capricorn, of course, is the goat. The goat is Pan. Okay? And also, of course, if you add up 7 plus 6, it comes out to 13. Of course, the age of Kobe Bryant's daughter, or the age she was at the time that she actually died. Okay? And then if you look at the picture at the bottom in the middle, it looks like it was during Christmas, and you have a Christmas tree. Now, of course, the Christmas tree represents Tammuz, or the spirit of Nimrod reborn. And as we already found out earlier, the number 13 represents death and rebirth. Okay. Then if you look at the picture to the left of that, you have the Hegelian dialectic that's being displayed. You have his son wearing the black and his daughter wearing the white, the coming together of opposites. Okay. Then if you look at the picture that's directly above that, you have the baby, which looks like he has a green blanket covered over his head, which again is still in reference to Tammuz. You know, that's why they had the picture of the Christmas tree and the picture of this baby with a green towel, because Tammuz is a god of vegetation. And oftentimes in ancient cultures, these gods of vegetation, they'll be depicted with green skin. Okay. But they're not going to put green skin on a baby in this movie. Okay. So instead, they put a green towel over him. Okay. Then if you take a look at the picture in the middle at the top, it's a picture of Martin Lawrence holding a basketball with a number on his shirt, but you can't really make it out. Looks like it could be either a number 23 or a number 33. You know, whichever it is, we know both of those numbers are esoteric numbers. 23 representing the intertwining serpent. Okay, which Kobe Bryant, as we know, was the black Mamba. Okay, the divine teacher. And when you look at the number 33, 33 represents a level of enlightenment. It also represents sacrifice. Okay, so when it's all said and done, why have these particular pictures on the wall of his daughter in a basketball jersey? You know, Martin Lawrence with a basketball. It's all alluding to Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. As we know, Kobe Bryant, of course, he was a professional basketball player, and as we know, his daughter Gigi also played basketball as well. You know, at I believe a high school level, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Oh, and before I forget, too, notice how in the first installment of Bad Boys, he had sons, right? Where are the sons in this movie? It's like they almost just written them completely out of the script. We see it looks like he's on the wall right here in the picture at the bottom left corner, but they didn't include him in the movie, either son, because he had two of them. They had to do that because it doesn't play into the narrative of Kobe Bryant. Okay, Kobe Bryant did not have any sons. He only had daughters. Okay.